story of Cerridwen's Cauldron and the birth of Taliesin. So we're going back to sort of the very, very, very beginning of the King Arthur legends here. It was a very, very, very long time ago, in a dark valley in Wales. There lived a lady called Cerridwen, and some say she was a witch, some say she was a goddess, but all are agreed that she was a very, very powerful woman. She had a daughter who was as beautiful as the morning star, and a son who was as ugly as the most ugly toad. And his mind was dark and clouded. And Cerridwen feared for her son, and in order to give him some sort of start in life, Cerridwen decided to brew a cauldron of a potion which would contain all the knowledge of all the world. And for the making of the potion, she needed this to be stirred for a year and a day. And for the stirring of the potion, she paid a young man from the village, and that man's name was Gwionbark. And Gwionbark faithfully stirred the potion in the cauldron for a whole year, and there was but one day left of stirring, when 3 hot drops of potion fell onto Gwionbark's thumb. And to cool his burning thumb, he popped his thumb in his mouth, and all the knowledge of all the world was in those 3 drops of potion. And as he drank it down, he knew that Cerridwen's intention was to kill him. And all that was left in the cauldron was simply bitter brew. And with a loud crack, the cauldron split open and spilled the bitterness out over the kitchen floor. And Cerridwen, hearing the crack of the iron cauldron, knew what had happened. And she ran into the kitchen just in time to see Gwionbark running through the kitchen door and out and away. And as Gwionbark ran, he turned into a hare, and Cerridwen saw him. She turned himself into a greyhound bitch, and she chased him over the ground, she chased him over the earth, and she chased him ever the closer. And Gwionbark came to a river, and the hare changed into a little fish, and jumped into the river, and began to swim through the water. But Cerridwen, seeing this, changed from a greyhound bitch to an otter, and she chased Gwionbark as a fish, swimming through the water, and she chased him ever the closer. And Gwionbark, knowing that the otter was coming closer to him, jumped as a fish up out of the water and turned himself into a sparrow. And he flew as fast as he could through the air. But Cerridwen, seeing this, turned herself into a sparrowhawk, and she chased him ever the closer. Gwionbark, as a sparrow, landed in a farmyard, and he turned himself into 1 grain of wheat, and he was 1 grain of wheat among many. And Cerridwen, seeing this, changed from a sparrowhawk into a great fat farmyard hen, and she pecked and she pecked and she pecked and she pecked at all the grains of wheat until she found the grain of wheat which was Gwionbark, and she swallowed it down. 9 months later, Cerridwen gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, and that child was Gwionbark reborn. And of course, Cerridwen's intention had been to kill the child, for he would still have all the knowledge of all the world. but he was so beautiful. A mother's love overcame her bitterness, and she placed him gently in a tiny coracle and set the coracle loose upon the river. And for many years, William Bart's little coracle simply travelled along the river, going wherever the currents would take it. Now, at about this time, in a valley in Wales, there was a king who had a son who was something of a wastrel, and he had accumulated some gambling debts. The king had said to his son that he would help him clear his gambling debts, that he would let him have all the profit from that year's salmon harvest if he would set the nets and if he would stand in the freezing cold waters and catch the salmon as they made their sad journey to the spawning grounds. And this is how a minor Welsh prince caught a coracle in the salmon nets. But out of the coracle stepped a tall, fair-haired man with a shining face. And the prince looked at him in some surprise. And the fair-haired man with the shining face said, "My name is Taliesin of the Shining Brow. I have been dead, I have been alive, I have been reborn. I have been a hare and I have run across the earth. I have been a fish and I have swum through the water. I have been a bird, I have flown through the air. I know many stories. I can harp any tune. I can rhyme any word. I can sing with perfect metre. I am the bard who has all knowledge." And in later years, Taliesin, who was the world's greatest bard, taught much of his knowledge, much of his skill at harping, many of his stories, to a great magician who came after him. And of course, the great magician's name was Merlin. But Merlin's stories will all have to wait for another day and another time. And with that, I hope that your life too will be filled with stories and music and rhymes and riddles and laughter and magic. And I hope to see you again soon. Stay well. Peace be with you.